Welcome everyone to our first in the series of Epicureans of Stonehill. We started this series as a way to bring all faculty and staff together in community at Stonehill and share some of our special and favorite recipes across the college. So my name is Elizabeth Stringer-Keefe and I'm the Dean of Graduate and Professional Studies at Stonehill. I am going to be making tortilla soup today. I was a community college student when I began my career, in my higher education career, and I was working at the restaurant of one of my best friend's sister, so she owned the restaurant. I felt kind of stuck in my town a little bit, and she one day came and said to me, she's a professionally trained chef and was the restaurant owner, would you like to become the sous chef and be trained by me? And I was very, very interested, and so I had the honor of training under Linnea Ruffo, who owned the Galleria Cafe in the Berkshires. While I was a community college student, I was a first-generation college student. So this was a really great opportunity for me, and I learned so much about the restaurant business and about cooking, and just being mentored by her meant so much to me. I have always remembered this recipe. This recipe was developed by Linnea, and it has been widely circulated. It was published in a cooking magazine, and it was a restaurant favorite. And so I have always utilized this recipe as a way to bring people together if I host dinner parties or share it with friends. And my circle of friends and I we remain very close friends. And so Linnea's younger sister, Jenny, is one of my best friends, and we still talk about this soup and we still make this soup together. So it's a really nice recipe. So I'm going to be sharing this recipe with gratitude to Linnea Ruffo. She's also the person that got me to go on to four-year college. So I am indebted to her. So this is her recipe. Okay, so soup is a great meal, and it can be a meal, it can be a starter. There are so many ways that soup can be used. And there is a basic structure to soup that's very important. It always starts with an aromatic. So an onion is how we're gonna start the soup. The really interesting part about this recipe is that I did not learn this recipe by measuring. I learned it by watching. So I actually had to deconstruct the recipe and figure out how much of everything that I used. So the recipe calls for half of a small yellow onion, but the really important thing about soup and like using an aromatic in general is that you do it to taste. So if you like strong aromatics, you like a strong base, then you would use more onion. And what I always do once I get the onion chopped is just take a look at it and eyeball it to see, you know, is this enough? And then you can add or subtract based on what you like and what your preferences are. And that's the same with spices in soup. I tend to like really strong flavors. I'm often accused of over-spicing. I tend to add more than less. So you start by just chopping an onion, and I'm gonna actually chop this onion. Chopping onion is very easy when you are a contact lens wearer because your eyes do not water. And for those of you who do not wear contact lenses, one of the ways that you can ensure that your eyes don't water is to put a small bowl of liquid next to you when you're chopping onions, because it can sometimes draw away some of the odor that makes your eyes water. So we're going to be chopping this onion for a little while, and it's really important to finely chop the onion. So one of the ways that I do that I was taught by Linnea is you put your flat hand on the knife, and then you kind of go back and forth like this. Makes it very easy, and then you can kind of scrape and bring it together. Yes, and a lot of soups start with what's called mirepoix, and mirepoix is just onion and carrots and celery, and people who make soup often keep these things in like bags in their freezer, and then they just throw them in when they're ready to use them. So, then what I like to do is, dependent on the size of the pot, I'm gonna use the smaller pot today, is see it spread out on the bottom. I add the oil first and then I look, and what I like to do is get like almost like a single layer of my aromatic, and that's how I judge. Because onion in particular has like it's very strong. I can overtake a recipe very, very easily. If you have a mild flavored soup, this one's not very mild, it's a spicier soup, but if you have a mild flavored soup and you add too much onion, then you run into just onion flavor, and you want to avoid that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is bring my pot over to the stove. Every oven and every stove is different. So mine at home is gas, and you have to watch it very carefully because before you know it, your whole thing can be on fire and burnt. And what you want to avoid is the onion caramelizing in this particular recipe. So I'm adding about 2 tablespoons of avocado oil to the bottom of this. Again, I did measure it out last night, so it's about 2 tablespoons, but you want to be mindful of how much oil you add to, because you don't want to get a greasy, you don't want any kind of oil residue. So my oil just about covers the bottom of this pan, and that's what you want to focus on. I'm going to use about 3/4 of it, and then I'm going to put it in. And what I do with this is I just shake it and then you can get it into kind of a single layer. And then we're going to let that simmer. While we're doing that, this recipe calls for chicken. So we're going to dry roast a piece of chicken, and this is a really good method of ensuring that your chicken retains its moisture, and it's very, very easy. So what you do when you dry roast a piece of chicken is you wrap the chicken breast in parchment paper. So I've already wrapped this one, but I'm going to actually open it up and show you what it looks like. You take care in the way you wrap it so that it creates a seal on the chicken. But when you open it up, you can spice it in any way you like. And I'm just going to add some salt to this one. But if you wanted to make lemon chicken or you wanted to add olive oil, you could do that. So I'm just adding some salt to this one. And one of the things I learned when I was working in the restaurant is that you can really never use enough salt. And part of the reason that you like things so much when you go out to a restaurant is because they have bathed it in salt and fat. So, okay, so to dry roast, what we're gonna do is you take this parchment paper and then you're gonna fold it over at the top, and you're gonna create a very close and tight seal so that the juices can't get out. And then you're gonna close it up, okay? And then you put it in an oven-proof dish like this, and in a 350 oven for 20 minutes. So I'm gonna do that now. Okay, now, I'm gonna wash my hands. Anytime you handle chicken, our friends Sam and Ella, you wanna get those away. So we're gonna wash our hands. And then I actually have a prepared piece of dry roasted chicken to show you what it looks like. And so when it is finished, it looks like this. And there's very little juice in the pan when you take it out. You'll see a little bit has escaped. But when you unwrap it, this one I did salt and pepper. It's not the kind of preparation that you want when you're going to present the chicken breast, because it doesn't look very pretty. It looks, you know, it looks poached. But the chicken is very juicy, and that's a really great thing for a recipe like this. So if it's chicken that you're putting on top of a salad that you're going to be cutting, or you're going to put it in a soup, it's a perfect method, and it's very, very easy, and it's very, very like mess-free. You don't have to do a lot of cleanup afterwards, which is why I like it. So while the while the onion is going, I'm actually gonna slice this chicken up. I'm gonna move my onion to the side. And what you do with this chicken is that you just, you slice very, very thin, tiny, tiny, like as thin as you can get it. Because you're gonna add strips of chicken to the bowls. This is a deconstructed soup. So you pour the broth over chicken, avocado, and Monterey Jack cheese, and then it's garnished with tortilla chips, which you can make yourself or buy, and chopped cilantro. And the important part to know about this particular recipe is that it's very easy to make this vegan or vegetarian. So we're gonna use chicken stock today, but you can sub it with vegetable stock, and you can also, instead of the chicken, add black beans or peppers, and you don't have to add the cheese. I'm gonna check on our onion. You wanna make sure that your onion does not caramelize, because that's a very different flavor. It brings sugar into it when it caramelizes. So you wanna make sure that it's translucent but not caramelized. And I'm gonna turn this up a little bit. This is a good example of how ovens differ, and you want like low to medium heat, but it really depends. You want to just hear that onion starting to simmer a little bit. I'm going to turn it up just a little bit to get it moving. And once your onion is translucent, you are going to add chicken stock. So I use bone broth instead of chicken stock, and the difference between stock and bone broth is that stock is simmered with vegetables and other things, and bone broth is really, you're simmering the bones, and you get much more protein, and you get the benefit of like the animal, basically. So it's much better for you, and some people don't like bone broth because it can taste gamey to them. But this is a very good brand, and it does not taste gamey at all. It's also gluten-free. For those of you who are gluten-free, this whole recipe is gluten-free. I am gluten-free. And this is a really very good product. So I really like this because it adds a lot of protein when you use bone broth versus stock. And it doesn't add calories or anything. So it's a very, very good option. And you can get beef bone broth as well. So I use this when I make gravies, when I make soup, because it just adds extra protein in it, and it just helps to kind of elevate the recipe a little bit. And I'm starting to be able to smell it. These pots are also cast iron, and they're covered with enamel. These are Le Creuset and Le Creuset, and so they need a little bit higher heat. And so it takes a little bit longer. Like if you don't have an open flame, it takes a little bit longer for the heat to get in here, because it has to heat the whole cast iron. The avocado in the soup, and again, it's a deconstructed soup, so once the broth is made, you prepare the bowls, and that's where the cheese, the avocado, and the chicken go. And this is cubed. And again, you can add as much or as little as you like. I like a lot of avocado because avocado is an excellent fat for you, and it's very, very nutritious. And how I cut this is I go all the way around the avocado, and I'm gonna make sure that I don't cross this, and then you twist it open, and you have a beautiful avocado. I usually remove the pit. I'm not gonna do it that way, but I usually remove the pit with the knife, which, I am gonna do it, but you can stab yourself in the hand, which I've done in the past, so be very careful doing that. So you take the avocado, very easy, and you just slice it like the long way, and then across. And then when you're ready, you can just scoop this out of the avocado into the bowl. And I'm just gonna do one today, this. But this soup really comes together in like 10 to 20 minutes. It's a very, very easy soup to make. And it's It's nutritious and it tastes good. And so for my family, it's like a family favorite. And it's very easy for me because it's fast. And so when I don't have an option for dinner because I have spent too long thinking about a work issue, I can pull this soup together really, really quickly. The next thing that we have to chop is the cilantro. Now, cilantro is a very controversial herb, and a lot of people don't like it. So I'm gonna cut some off here, but the reason it's controversial is that some people think it tastes like soap. Yep, and so they can't stand it. So I was talking earlier about my girlfriend Jenny and my girlfriend Stacy. We all worked at Jenny's sister Linea's restaurant together, and Jenny cannot stand cilantro because she thinks it tastes like soap. So we don't put it on hers. But when you are cleaning your cilantro, I always pull these off individually. Not everybody does that, and if you actually use a food processor, it's much easier to pick the stems out, but you can also just pull them. If you pull along the stems, it's an easy way to get the leaves off. They come off pretty easily. It's an easy way to clean. And then you have your chopped cilantro ready. And then after that, we're going to get our cheese ready. I'm gonna check on our onion because I hear it. Yep, okay, we're starting to see steam. And now this is simmering nicely. So you can see movement, and that's how you know things are working the way you want them. So when these onions start to look see-through is when they're ready, when they're translucent. But again, you want to avoid and make sure that you don't really brown the onions because you're introducing a different kind of flavor when you have a caramelized onion. So I'm going to turn this down a tiny bit. And then I'm going to get the bone broth ready. So I'm going to use most of this in the soup, but I'm not going to measure because it's not my nature to do so. So I'm going to, I also feel like I mess it up when I measure, so I'm gonna add this. And again, when this kind of recipe, when you make it over and over, you can eyeball things and you know when, you know what is enough and what's too much. So now I've cleaned a lot of this cilantro, and I'm gonna chop it in the same way that I did the onion, and I'm only gonna do a little bit because of how controversial it is. But I'm not crossing my knives here because we have different dietary preferences here, so I'm making sure that I don't cross my cutting boards and my knives that touch meat so that we can have a portion of this that's vegetarian. I actually prepared a vegetarian version of the broth in advance. So you can see that I'm, yeah, you're very welcome. And I'm starting to see a little brown forming on the bottom, which means these are close to going to caramelization, so this is the time. And now I'm gonna add the bone broth. And again, I'm gonna add just about this entire thing, which is about 3 cups. A little bit more. And then I'm gonna let this simmer. One of the things that I do is I spice now, because when you are using a clear liquid, you want to be able to see how much you're adding into the soup. It can go wrong very quickly. And I'm actually gonna measure the spices today because I overspice things, and it's not, people don't like that. So I'm gonna make sure that I don't overspice. You might still think this is overspiced, but this is mild spice to me. So I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons of cayenne pepper. One of the things that I've learned along the way, I cooked a lot with my mom when I was a kid too, and my mom always told me, cooking is an art and baking is a science, right? So you want to make sure that you're really paying attention to recipes and measurements in baking, or you have disasters. But with cooking, it's very forgiving, and you can adjust, especially with spice. Okay, so I've done a little bit less than 2 tablespoons. So then I put that in, and now I'm going to add a very aromatic spice, cumin. which is such a delicious spice and is my favorite. And I'm gonna add exactly the same amount, 2 teaspoons, sorry. And if I were doing this, I would just be pouring it in to the pot. I wouldn't measure, but this is a cooking show after all, so I'm trying to, right? Okay, and then salt. Salt is really important. Anytime you add salt to a recipe, you are enhancing flavor. When you introduce pepper, that's a different flavor, but salt enhances anything that you cook. So I like to give like a good big pinch. And if you ever watch like a professional chef, you see them salting things and they're dumping the salt in. So hefty amount of salt. I probably just put about a tablespoon in. I probably would put more in if I was cooking for my own family, but this is my Stonehill family, so I'm gonna go lighter on the salt. I care about your heart health, so I'm gonna go lighter on the salt. And then I'm gonna whisk this a little bit. And I'm just gonna get those spices mixed in. So I'm gonna check the chicken. See what that looks like. I can tell it's not done. I can just tell by looking at it because I can see that it's pink. And so that's a bad sign. We never want pink chicken. This oven I have absolutely no background with. So if it were my oven and I were putting the chicken in for 20 minutes, I would know that at like 14 minutes I need to check the chicken because my oven runs hot. This clearly runs a little lower. And so we're gonna cook this chicken till it's like, we're gonna really make sure this chicken's cooked. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna add the tomato base to the soup. I live and die by these Pastine kitchen ready tomatoes. This is, Linnea introduced me to these. We used to use a giant can when we would make it in the restaurant. And I cannot live without these cans. My husband jokes that I like buy the shelf. I'm like so paranoid that I'm gonna run out of these because I use it in everything. So it's really great. For this recipe, an entire can, because I used about 3 cups of stock, you use 28 ounces, one of these cans, the whole can. Now, if I were doubling this recipe, I would use probably around 2 of those, and I would use one of these, and you can use 2 of these, but if you like your broth to be a little smoother, you can use tomato paste instead of a second can. You whisk it in and you can add a little bit more broth to it, and that gives it a little bit of smoother appearance. I like it to be a little chunkier with a little bit of tomato because it makes it a little hearty, so I like this. But when I want the soup to have more of a finished look and be very, very like smooth, I use the tomato paste. If I'm trying to impress people, I use the tomato paste. I'm not trying to impress you, so no, I really am. This is a can opener that has absolutely no blade on it. And so what it does is it separates the lid from the side through its teeth. And I bought this when my children were babies, and I think I would pass out if anything ever happened to this can opener. It's very old now. And it used to be that what you can do is press this side button and you can lift off the thing. Oh, it worked today. But I mean, there's no sharp edges on this. So it's just a great can opener for everyone. If you're clumsy or you have young children, it's a great can opener. So I love this can opener. So once this has simmered for a little while, and it doesn't need long because we've whisked it and it's been overheat a little bit, I'm gonna turn it up a little bit because now we wanna get it to like medium heat. And we've got now all the spices in there and the onion, and we're gonna add this can. I'm gonna get my spatula. We're gonna add this can of tomato sauce. And you gotta be careful because you make a mess here. But you're gonna add the whole thing. Now, one of the things I like about this brand is that, and anything coming out of Italy, my husband's family is from Italy, and there's a label on things that are directly imported from Italy that means the Italian government has given it its approval. It's a DOC stamp. It's especially important to pay attention to with wine if you're a wine drinker. So if you see the DOC label, it means it's approved by the Italian government to be imported. And a lot of this brand is imported from Italy, and a lot of it has the DOC label. So I really like this brand. Also, my husband's grandmother, Maria de Muno, who immigrated to this country, she would say that these were as good as her own canned tomatoes. So I was like thrilled to learn that, since I've always loved these tomatoes. So she would use these in her sauces. And one of the things, this is a bonus tip. If you're making a sauce, the Italians never waste the inside of this can. So they would put a tiny bit of water in, they swish it around, and then they pour it back in the sauce, whatever they're doing. So we would do that for Nana Maria if she were here. And I'm actually gonna do it right now with a little bit of chicken broth so we get the full benefit. I'm just gonna swirl it in the can. Ode to Nana Maria. And then we're gonna pour it in, so then we get the whole benefit of all the tomato in there. No waste, no waste. Now I'm gonna whisk this up a little bit and just make sure it comes together. And now we're gonna let this simmer a little bit and we're gonna finish the rest of our work. So we've got some cilantro chopped, we've got our avocado ready, and then the last thing to do is grate the cheese. And so I am going to grate the cheese here. And this is pepper jack cheese. I really like pepper jack cheese because I like spice. But Monterey Jack cheese is great. And one of the things that's really important to any recipe that has cheese is that you should always grate your own cheese. Always shred your own cheese. Do not buy shredded cheese. It has a film on it. It makes it more difficult to melt because it has to sit in the bags. And so that's why you find if you use cheese, like it's not melting right away. So always grate your own cheese. So I'm gonna grate some cheese. This is my favorite grater. It's not a very practical grater, but I like it. And you can just rest it over a bowl and grate this way. And what I do is just turn it. Actually, what I do is make my husband and kids shred the cheese usually, if I'm being honest. And they will attest to that for sure. My youngest, Cooper, is always shredding the cheese. When he's not available, usually my husband. So we have our cheese ready, we have our avocado ready, and we have our chicken ready. So now we're gonna prepare the bowls. And how we're gonna do this is in our graduate and professional studies cups at Stonehill College. And we're going to do them one by one, and this is how the soup starts to come together. When you get your bowls ready, what you want to do is you want to take a little bit of cheese, put a little bit in. Okay, perfect. And then we're going to add avocado to the bowls, and you can use just a spoon to scoop this out. Very easy. Avocado is so delicious and so good for you. Healthy fats. Okay. Oops, I got the stem in there. I got to get that out. I don't want anybody thinking it's a tooth. That would be a really bad cooking show, wouldn't it? Okay. All right, so now we've got our cheese and our avocado, and then we're gonna add some chicken strips. And again, you know, you can add as much or as little, like if you want a little more protein, you add more chicken. We're gonna just put a little bit in each. The last step to this soup is just a fun part, and you don't have to do it if you don't want to, but this is topped with tortilla chips. And one thing about tortilla chips is we made them fresh in the restaurant every single day, and they are very easy to make. It's actually easy to make your own corn tortillas as well. It's just masa, which is corn flour, and water. So if you need to make a recipe and you don't have any tortilla chips, or you want to make nachos, if you have corn flour and water, you can make your own corn tortillas, and then you can make your own tortilla chips. So I thought I would show you what this looks like. These are just corn tortillas, and we're gonna make a couple. I'm gonna put this pot on the oven, or on the stove, and I'm gonna add a little bit of oil to it. Now, this is the part where your house can catch on fire, so you have to watch this very, very carefully. And you just want a little bit of oil in the bottom of the pan, like about a half an inch is good. And you know, obviously we had a fry-later at the restaurant, but the tortilla chips were like what people absolutely loved, part of the homemade, and it is a really nice touch, and they're so simple to make. So I'm going to move this over, and what you do is just you take your tortillas and you literally just cut them in half, and then you can cut them in quarters. It depends on how big you want your chips. I go one more, usually like this. So we're just gonna make a few so you can see what this is like. And then the nice part is that you can add as much salt or as little salt as you want, but you have to make sure that your oil gets really, really hot, like hot enough to fry. So we're gonna crank this up, but we're gonna watch it to make sure. Now let's check our chicken. Still very pink. So we're gonna leave that in there. Come back tomorrow and get that chicken. Or we're gonna leave it and some really hungry undergrad is gonna find it later and say, oh my goodness, this is my lucky day. Or we'll leave a note. Chicken breast in oven, take out at 10 p.m., right? Okay, so we're gonna heat this up. Now meanwhile, our soup is simmering. It's bubbling, it's coming together. It's got like a little film on top, and that's how you kind of know that it's reached like a point. You can see that it's got some the chunkiness from the pureed tomatoes, which is amazing, and they cook down as time goes on, so it feels chunky right now, but it will be less chunky as we serve it. And it's nice to have, it's a little bit hearty. So at this point, I would add like 4 more tablespoons of cayenne pepper. Oil gets thin when it's reached like its right point. And again, this kind of pan means that it takes a while for the heat to get to the oil, so we're gonna have to let it go a little bit longer. Then we'll drop our tortilla chips in, and then we're gonna be ready to serve our soup. I'm gonna take out the vegan version and get this ready. Now, here's a good example. The vegan version, I used vegetable stock for, and so there's no meat or dairy in this whatsoever. Let's see if I can get this open without splashing it on our new apron, Epicureans of Stonehill. Okay, I'm gonna have to give this to Craig, I think. Okay, Craig, here you go. You make your TV debut. Thank you, Craig.
Anything you want to plug while you do this?
Stonehill Graduate in Professional Studies.
Graduate in Professional Studies.
And what does Craig do? Was this on his resume?
Craig is the Associate Provost for Academic Operations and Strategic Planning. Is that right, Craig?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so here's the vegan version. And as you can see, it's very similar. I have to say that when I tasted this last night, I was very pleasantly surprised because I wondered if it would miss something because of like the heartiness of the bone broth, and it did not. So this is a very easy recipe to make vegan. I brought black beans so I could make this a little bit heartier as well, since we're not adding chicken and we can add a little bit of protein. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to, heat this up for Uma's. I'm doing the opposite way because I have to heat the broth first. So normally I would do the deconstructed part and I would put the avocado in, but you don't want to heat the avocado that much because it loses something. So we're going to heat Uma's broth, and then we're gonna show you a version of this soup that is vegan too, if you want to do that. Let's see. Oh yeah, I heard this and we almost started a fire. We're not gonna do that here. We're not gonna start any fires. Our soup has now reached the point that we want it to. It came into a low boil. And we're gonna give it a stir. We're gonna turn the heat down so it's simmering, and then we're gonna leave that. And now we're gonna check on our oil. And when you heat oil, if you look at oil, you'll see streaks in the oil when it's getting to the temperature that you want. So you want to watch it. I'm starting to see streaks, but I can tell it's not hot enough just by like my hand. So I'm going to let it go for a little while longer, and then we're going to make our own tortilla chips, and then we're going to be ready to eat. So I'm going to add some avocado to Uma's here. Uma's going to eat first. And then I'm going to add some black beans. Do you like black beans? Okay, good. I was like, oh no, is this a bad idea? I'm going to add some black beans so that it's a little harder, give her a little protein, plant protein.
Excellent.
Is it warm enough?
It's got a nice little
Kick. Yep, that's the cayenne. See, I thought it was mild spice, but.
I'm gonna try it with the
Do you want it to be hotter? Perfect, okay. All right, hang on, I've got it. No, you have to give it back because I have to dress it with the cilantro and the chips. I know. I'm sorry, but you have to give it back. Oh, she loves it. She loves it. Okay, beautiful, Uma, thank you. We didn't plan that in advance. We did not. Okay, I think that my oil is probably close to being ready. And so one of the things I did not bring, which I always bring, which I forgot, are tongs, which you want to have. But I'll use my spoon. And then you want to have a plate that is lined with a paper towel to receive your chips afterwards. So let me put one of these in and see how it does. Yep, and it starts to bubble, so you can, that's how you know your oil's ready. So I'm gonna put these all in. Some people will say like you can salt the oil and then it'll give you a better flavor, but I just salt afterwards because you lose the salt, and then it's my way of, I think, being able to control it a little bit more, the amount of salt. When you're making something like this, you want small batch because it helps you to control it. And also in here there's no fan, and we could potentially set off the fire alarm. And so we're gonna be very, very careful because Pauline would be upset with us if we did that. We do not wanna upset Pauline. Okay, so I'm watching these now. It could have been a little bit hotter because it's taking a little bit longer, but that's okay. Okay, so there's the cheese. And we need to get the avocado. I'm gonna scoop this out like this. Into the bowl. If you have a lot of time on your hands and you dry your avocado shells, you can grind them in a like a coffee grinder or a food processor and add them to things, and it brings a lot of nutrition. So let's check our chips. They're coming along. They start to get nice, like a little brown color. Then we'll salt them when they come out with our trusty kosher salt. I really only use kosher salt. It's a stronger salt. You have to be careful, but it has bigger flakes, but I really love kosher salt, so it's my go-to for everything. I actually had an extended conversation with my girlfriends last night about whether this soup should be served with a dollop of sour cream, and resoundingly the answer was absolutely not. No, no, no. And I agree with that. I was remembering that when I was working at the restaurant, one of the customers once asked me where the sour cream was. And so I went to my girlfriends and said, did we serve sour cream on this soup? Like, I don't think so. And everyone agreed no. And then Jenny had a video of Linnea making the soup in Mexico. And we examined the video and there was no sour cream. So no sour cream. Yeah, but I do think you can add to this soup to your taste. This is the wonderful thing about it. Like, there's a lot of, it's very forgiving, and you know, I brought a jalapeno because I love jalapeno, and so like I would be inclined to like slice up this jalapeno and put it in, and burn a hole in my stomach, right?
Put it into the deconstructed part?
Put it into the deconstructed part, yeah, because I love jalapeno. Yeah, right. Like, so you can really add. You can you can do this the way you like. And some people might like to add black beans to theirs too. This soup is perfect for me because it's so simple. And so that's why I don't add anything else to it. You can add anything you like to it. You can add peppers, like red peppers or, poblano peppers, anything else that you like, you can add. And our chips are almost done, and they're this beautiful golden brown when they're done. We have one coming out. That one's kind of a little bit overdone, but that's all right. And I'm gonna get my salt, so we're ready to salt these right when they're hot. And then we're gonna ladle our soup while these drain, and we're gonna have a feast. The nice thing about having a fryer-later, and I actually do have a fryer-later, is that you just dump these in and then in 1 second you take them out and they're done. But they are easy to make on the stove too. You can see they're nice and golden brown. So these are done. I'm gonna turn this off. Is this it? Nope, there we go. There we go, it's off. Now we're not gonna burn the place down. I'm gonna take these and then I'm gonna salt these. And again, I use a generous amount of salt because I like salt. So I'm gonna take like a teaspoon of salt probably, and then I'm just gonna sprinkle it over. And these are kosher, and pretty much any kosher, but this one is Morton's, and I really love this one because it's very, very coarse. I like coarse salt, and I'm actually gonna put the rest of this right in here because I love salt so much. And it is time to serve our soup. We are ready. So, and I'm just gonna move this around a little bit and pour the broth over. Okay, and then I'm going to, oh, these are hot. I'm going to add a little bit of cilantro and then a couple of chips. We want to make sure everyone gets the chips. So, all right, who would like the first cup? Okay, here you go. You're the first.
Oh my God, thank you.
Okay, now I'm going to do Uma's because Uma's been waiting so patiently for her soup. How is it? Excellent. I'm coming to the rescue, Uma. Here you go. A cameraman. Does everyone have one now?
Do you have some?
I don't know. Okay. Oh, that's why I forgot myself. I didn't count myself. Oh, Craig, aren't you thoughtful? Bon appetit, everyone.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay,
Yeah.
Chef, this was fabulous. It's really fabulous.
Oh, I'm glad you like it.
I was wondering about the ribs, whether they could take the spice level.
I'm surprised at how spicy it is.
Really? Oh, God. Listen, I have to tell you. Now, I thought this was so mild. When I measured out the spice lesson, I'm like, oh, this is mild, and this is probably good, because I would have added probably 2 tablespoons of spice. Yes, I like spice.
Flavor-wise, what comes out first?
Cayenne and the cumin, the tomatoes.
This
a
is
little bit of the
so mild.
onion and the avocado. It's nice and smooth.
Oh, the avocado is like my favorite part. What do you think of the chips? Would you try making the chips at home? Yeah, right?
Definitely trying the chips. It's so different.
And I love the saltiness.
Aren't they so good? Honestly, like they're easy to make at home, and they have like a completely different taste, which is why everyone at the restaurant loved the homemade chips.
There's
And
so many like textures in the soup.
yes,
Like the chicken,
Yes.
avocado,
Yep.
crispy. It's just
and it's good for you. Like it's got so many, and so hats off to Linnea Rufo, who developed this amazing recipe. She is like a masterful chef.
So I'm surprised that you add the chicken to the deconstructed part as opposed to just adding it to the soup. Like everything else on the deconstructed part is typically tops. You put it on the top of the soup. I like the idea of putting it on the bottom.
The chicken would give it, like, I think a different flavor if it were cooked in it. When you cook meat in something, think about when you make like a marinara and you make it with just the tomato and the basil and the olive oil. If you cook meat in something, it's like, it's deeper, it's much deeper flavor. Thank you so much for coming to Epicureans of Stonehill. Please tune in next time for Shrimp Scampi with the Vice President for Academic Affairs, Peter Ubertasio. Have fun, enjoy, and remember, a good cook always cleans up after themselves.